Greetings fellow warriors, Havoc here. Sega just dropped a whole bunch of new VF footage over the weekend, over 20 minutes in fact. So, I have feelings about the game that I would like to share with you all. And without further ado, let's get rolling. First of all, it seems that the official title of the new game is Virtua Fighter Crossroads, but with the initial V and I highlighted, so basically symbolizing 6 in Roman numerals. So it's kind of like its new thing, in a way, Virtua Fighter Crossroads, but it's also VF6 at the same time. Go figure. So I guess one of the meanings of Crossroads is like symbolizing the old and the new mixing together. Let's start with the juiciest part, the versus mode footage. Unfortunately, out of the 20-something minutes of footage that we got, versus mode footage is only like a minute and a half, but still, it's gorgeous. The character models are beautiful, the animations are beautiful and very fluid. Like this is something that some people have been complaining about VF, like 5, it being a 20-year-old fighting game. The animations were, some people said stiff. I always found them beautiful in fact, but yeah, now that's not gonna be the case anymore. Animations are super fluid and you can tell that they put a lot of effort into motion capture. The stages look really fantastic as well. The 2 stages that we've seen, one is like from a neighborhood and one is like temple grounds. I really like what I'm seeing. They actually look like locations that could have been taken from real life, where people would actually live and do day-to-day stuff. That's why I always thought DOA had the best stages out of 3D fighting games, because they felt like lived at, yeah? You had like a building under construction, or like neighborhoods, or like the beach with like palm trees and seats. It wasn't just a closed-off arena. Well, ironically, VF3 is what started the trend, this trend in fighting games, where you could fight like on a rooftop, by stage in VF3. But later, they went in a different direction, like closed off arenas, like I said before, and DOA was basically the only 3D fighting game that was upholding this old tradition. They took it in like completely new and fresh avenues. So I'm glad that VF is returning to that as well, because it just adds flavor to the fights. So I can't wait to see what other awesome stages we're gonna get in the full game. And the camera work is also really awesome and dynamic. And it really showcases, it only adds extra flavor to the animations that are already beautiful. And you can feel the dynamics in the fight, the action. And then you get shaky cam during hits, which also, you can really feel the oomph in every move, yeah? This was also many people's complaint about VF before, that you couldn't really feel the hits in the game. Well, now you can. Now you totally can, and it looks awesome. So with touches like this, you don't really need like super massive hit sparks and explosions on the screen. You don't need to torture those poor epileptic kids. This just shows that you can show dynamic fighting game action on the screen without flooding it with super hit sparks and massive explosion visual effects. So thank you for keeping it clean, Sega. I appreciate it very much. This is the first time we also get to see Pai in action, and she looks gorgeous. Her redesign makes me think of Wong Kar-wai movies. Her being a Hong Kong actress and all, it just fits in perfectly. And her animations are beautiful as well. We already got to see a whole bunch of new techniques from her, but also the techniques that are recognizable from older VF entries. They look beautiful as well, so they really did a good job with motion capture. And not to mention Wolf. Wolf gets to show up some new pro wrestling moves, and they look spectacular. Like seriously, even watching replays from these fights in the future, I feel is gonna be fire. And we got to see newcomer Cielo in action as well, representing MMA. He's got some powerful hits as well, lovely animations. Well, maybe I'm not the biggest fan of his funny little top knot, but yeah, in action he looks great. He actually shares some moves with Vanessa, like the Superman punch and the takedowns, which is a given, because, you know, Vale Tudo and MMA have a lot in common. But which makes me wonder, for those of you who might remember, back in VF4 Vanilla, Vanessa had 2 styles that she could switch between, and one of them was Muay Thai. But in VF4 Evolution, when they introduced Brad, they actually gave Brad Vanessa's movements. Muay Thai movements, and they gave her a whole different moveset altogether. So we'll see if she's even returning, or maybe if she's returning, she'll get another extra moveset to go as was done before. Now, what's really interesting about the fighting mechanics that we've seen so far is that we actually haven't seen a single air launcher, right? A juggle starter, which is interesting if they actually decide to go away from launching opponents in the air, which was like always the, let's say, most unrealistic thing about VF, and go for other like combo opportunities. That might be a very interesting twist. I think I totally dig that. Instead, it seems that we are getting those moves that like break limbs, limb crushes. I don't remember what the official term they used before in the demonstration was. So that makes me really curious on what the UI is gonna look like. I mean, if it's a limb break system, maybe it could be something akin a little bit to like the Fighting Vipers series, where you had like under the health bar you had that like human model, and like if you hit a certain body part enough times, it would like start change color to red, and then you could break that. We'll see. And also, how often would these limb crushing effects actually take place during a fight? Would it be like a common thing? Because if there's any complaints I have about the fighting system that we've seen so far, it's like the actual breaking effect with the red like mist explosion. The animation is a little bit on the long side, I would have to say. If this were something that we would see like once per round, potentially per character, then okay, sure, that would be manageable. However, if it's something like, if this is actually a replacement for juggle status and we're gonna see this every 5 seconds, that might be a little bit of a problem. Because one of the coolest things about like the fights in Virtua Fighter has always been that there's no unnecessarily slowdowns, right? Even if you launch somebody in the air before, juggles would only take like what, 3-4 seconds max, like maybe a little bit longer if you had a wall be behind your back, but you know, then that's on you for being placed there. But other than that, it was all super smooth, and like, you know, 3 seconds and you're back to making decisions, back to actually fighting in the fighting game. We didn't have any super animations or anything else to draw the fight out unnecessarily. So I hope this won't be the case with the limb breaking mechanics. Because we need dynamic action, yeah, this is what VF is all about, this is what we're in for. Then there's that final hit animation where, like, you know, you see the opponent getting punched in the face and his tooth falls out, some blood spurts out, that kind of stuff. I really hope that that is only reserved for like the final hit in the final round of the game. Because if this were the case for like every single round, then that might drag things out unnecessarily as well. You know, it will be fun for the first couple of times, but like in the long run, if we're gonna be playing this game for what I expect to be playing this game for thousands upon thousands of hours, yeah? And this might get really old really fast, if that's the case, so I hope it isn't. Or, you know, they could just make them skippable or something, that would work as well. Also, another thing that we haven't seen, and that I really wonder about, will we still get replays? I sure hope so, because they were always super hype. I mean, Tekken, for example, went away from that direction and introduced slow-mos instead, but like, if, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, replays were always cool, so please leave them in. You know, ain't nothing like a triple replay of somebody bringing himself out unintentionally. That was always priceless meme material, so that's gotta stay, come on. Actually, now that I think about it, like both the stages that we've seen so far have been closed off, so I hope ringouts aren't gone. They're like a crucial VF mechanic that adds so much like strategy and depth. So yeah, I hope we get to see stages with ringouts. And like, more than one, for sure. That's a staple, come on. I'm kinda sad that we only got like a minute and a half of actual versus mode material, because there's still so many unanswered questions. Like the ringouts I said right now, but also like, will we actually have jumping still? Will we still have like, you know, big jump attacks and stuff like that? We've seen a snippet of Kage. Will Kage have stuff like his 10-foot toss? Still, I hope he does. That's like a classic move of his. You know, or that forehead drop that he jumps like 10 feet into the air and then drops head first onto the opponent. It would be a shame if we didn't get that. I don't think we've seen like the control scheme either. Will we still stay with... They did mention that they've hinted at the fact that they will be staying with like the old control system, but rearranging it somehow and playing around with it so it feels fresh. So I suppose we will be staying with like the 3 buttons, PKG, but will we get another button on top of that? For like the extra mechanics, like the free flow mechanic that we've seen before? I wish they would have shown that as well. Now they're gonna keep me waiting for no matter how long, and I wanna know. Here's hoping that we get to see more versus footage sometime within the coming months, and we won't have to wait a year or like half a year for more footage. Actually, since now that it seems that they have like a somewhat playable build, and they have like what, 4 characters? 5 characters, yeah? Akira, Stella, Wolf, Cielo, and now Pi. It would be really cool if they had like a closed alpha test or something like that. It's probably way too soon still, but I just can't wait until I get my hands on the game. Anyway, that should cover it for the versus mode footage. That was the good part of the video, and now it's time to get down to the bigger part of the footage, the other 20 minutes of the footage, the lion's share, which is story mode footage, and that's something I don't have that positive feelings about. So anyway, let's get down to it. So yeah, RGG being the developer of this game, it should come as no surprise that we're gonna get a full-on story mode with a whole expansive environment, a whole town to walk around in, you know, random fucks to beat up and stuff, and you're gonna be using VF moves while you're at it, so that's cool. But I really do hope that doesn't just end up being another Yakuza game in a Virtua Fighter game, because well, I hope this will be a good, this story mode will be a good platform for people to actually learn VF mechanics as they go along. You know, it's easy to draw comparisons with Street Fighter 6's World Tour mode, yeah? And in that World Tour mode, they originally promised that this would be like also not only a self-contained adventure, but also a platform for you to learn like the actual fighting game mechanics of the game. But it turned out not really putting that much emphasis on it, yeah? So I hope that this story mode will be different. Like, you know, back in VF4, quest mode didn't have any story, but it taught you a whole bunch of stuff. And with the training mode included, it was like a complete package. So with this, I hope that not only do we get a story, not only do we get a big environment, but, you know, people having played it will actually also get an opportunity to learn more about the game. You know, practical knowledge that they can later use, like when fighting their friends or fighting online, right? Maybe there could be like a boss challenge where you can only defeat him by like breaking his throws or something like that. You know, maybe later on, the game can actually teach you to apply like advanced mechanics, maybe something like, you know, fuzzy guard throw escape, you know, that kind of mix up. So you have to duck a throw and punish it. That would be super cool. In fact, now that I mentioned quest mode from VF4, it would really be a missed opportunity if they didn't do something like that, right? I think this should like encompass all of these things together. So you get like a full-on experience, a warrior's journey even. Yeah, but having said that, now we get to the part that I not that happy about. Like Cielo, the newcomer that I talked about a moment ago. Turns out that he is not only the protagonist of the story mode, which I sort of figured that he would be, but he is also going to be the new face of this game, period. So of course this is the look treatment, right? For more comparisons to Street Fighter. Yeah, MMA is the thing right now, so gotta position an MMA fighter as the protagonist of the game. That's cool and all, But when Luke was first introduced as like the new protagonist of the series, people had a lot of non-flattering opinions. I was kind of on the fence. I was like, he doesn't look that bad, you know. I can see him as the new face. But with Cielo, I don't know. I picture myself looking at like the box art for the new VF game, and there's Cielo like front and center. Is he really the best design that you could go for to represent Virtua Fighter? A game like that, a series like that? I don't really know. Like, you know, with Street Fighter's case, like even look at the name, Street Fighter, yeah, fighting on the streets. Like, but Virtua Fighter has historically always been more about like, you know, martial arts tradition and philosophy and stuff like that. Does Cielo really fit into that narrative so well? And like maybe Cielo by himself, frontline and center, I could somehow stomach. But you know, his merry group of friends, you've probably seen the screenshots of the four main characters, there's Cielo, there's Stella, and there's two other friends, and these are supposedly this is going to be the four main characters of the new VF, at least in story mode. And I don't know, if you look at these guys, do they really look like fighters to you? They look more like influencers to me. Or something along those lines, you know? Like when I think Virtua Fighter, I think like, you know, martial arts, right? At least Cielo has like a martial arts outfit on him. Why couldn't they like, you know, maybe present the four characters in like fighting attire where Stella was first featured in this era outfit, so now she gets a pass, right? But the other two, maybe you could have first dressed them up in like their primary costume as like the martial art that they represent or something like that, or like what they fight in. And then, like as an alternative costume, use their like casual attire and stuff like that. Wouldn't that make more sense? Because like seriously, right now, you look at these four characters, if somebody showed it to you out of context, yeah? Would you say that this is representative of fighting game? Not to mention Virtua Fighter, who has always been about martial arts? Or would you say that like, oh, they're about to drop like a banging new album or something like that? Or sell you a self-help program or something? I don't know, man. And then, like, the returning characters, the VF classics, are they just gonna be signed, like, to, like, mentor positions and have, like, no actual participation in the story other than, like, you know, you can go to them and they can teach you their techniques and then they're gone from the storyline? Is that really it? Or like in the restaurant scene, yeah? Well, Cielo and his little buddies are sitting around at the table at a Chinese restaurant. And when like Pai shows up, yeah, and one of the characters is like, Cielo is excited to see Pai and says, "Oh wow, Pai-chan, you're my hero," yeah, and the other guy says, "Oh, Pai-chan, who?" You know, funny little joke, drum roll, cue laugh track, ha ha ha, LOLs. I mean, come on, man, seriously, this is the Virtua Fighter universe we're talking about. Wasn't Pai like historically lore-wise like a massive movie star? Even if it's been like 20 years or something like that. I mean, and like the tournament, the Virtua Fighter tournament itself in universe, wasn't it like, you know, publicized worldwide, like G6 who controls all this thing, all this, pulls all the strings in the world, publicized it everywhere. It was like basically the UFC event of the Virtua Fighter world, and wouldn't people just know? I mean, come on, even in the trailer itself, you get like a massive mural of like, you know, classic VF characters, like, you know, Akira's under, Pai's under, Wolf, Jackie even, yeah? So like people obviously know, come on, it's like, it's the Virtua Fighter universe we're talking about. What are people interested in the Virtua Fighter universe if not fighting? What are we throwing in these funny little quips for, huh? Come on. And like the waitress at this restaurant, who I presume is like Pai's daughter or something, snubs that, like, oh, my mom made me wear like the traditional Chinese garb to serve the customers and something like. Guys, writers at Sega, are you feeling insecure about like the legacy of Virtua Fighter or something? What is this? You are making the next installment of Virtua Fighter, which is like the biggest celebration of martial arts culture and tradition in the genre. This is martial arts, the fighting game. Yes, why these jokes? Like this is serious stuff for us, the fans, right? This is what we're in for. There's nothing funny about it. This kind of tonal dissonance is basically my main gripe with what we've seen in this footage. I was frankly quite shocked with this kind of approach, and it goes even further. Now we get to the other thing, the setting, which I also have quite a lot to talk about. I think of Virtua Fighter settings, right? Locations. I think about like beautiful vistas, like, Wolf's Mountains, Vanessa's Waterfall, Jeffrey's Islands, with the classic Sega Blue Sky feeling, that kind of stuff. Or like old temples that are overflowing with like culture and significance. Even like Jackie's city landscapes were like compelling, and welcoming. All those places felt like places you would really want to go to. But now what do we have? It seems like that like the main hub and place of activities of the actual game is this, slum town with garbage bins everywhere, dilapidated buildings, cockroaches lying around, and our main protagonist is go around pit fights, to get some slap from the street to survive. Like, really? Like, where did the beauty of the environments go to? I mean, all those places from previous VFs felt like, amazing places that you'd want to go to. And like, I wouldn't want to go to this town, this garbage dump town. It feels like, I go around the wrong corner, I'm gonna get stabbed or something. Maybe it worked in like, but even Street Fighter, like what? You started off in Metro City, but it's Street Fighter, right? So you fight on the streets, I guess. And like, okay, Nashal is maybe like a slum town or something like that, but that was like the other area in the world after you already explored like all the Mentos locations and stuff like that. And VF, for this garbage dump to be like representative of what Virtua Fighter is right now, it just doesn't sit with me. Like, okay, picture this. Here it goes. This is how I would have seen it. Picture this. The protagonist, if you're gonna go with like the angle that this is like a whole new generation and stuff, picture this. The protagonist of the new VF is like Akira's student, yeah? He was raised in a small mountain town, mountain village, yeah, that's like secluded, and he was training all his life. Akira was his mentor, yeah, and this mountain town with like, beautiful views and stuff like that. This is the start of your journey, and then Akira says to you, okay, my pupil, your training is now complete, and the only way for you to advance as a real warrior is to go out into the world, venture off into the world, and make your mark as a true warrior. And then maybe like the second location you visit is this slum town, and maybe that's where you meet Cielo, and like you have to fight him, yeah, and you become like rivals. But then you also become friends. Like, even though you're from like two completely different walks of life, you learn to respect each other and to learn from each other, and you're bros and stuff like that, and you go on adventures together, and then you go off to different venues and stuff. Like, wouldn't that be cool? Just a thought. Wouldn't this be this small example? Wouldn't this be a good bridge or crossroads, if you would have it, between like the old and the new? Between like the classic and the modern settings. But instead, what do you get? It's just, I get the impression that they are trying to push the new and completely sideline everything else. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I'm just going by what Sega showed us so far, maybe they'll throw a twist in there and like, when as Cielo is picking up techniques and wisdom from like the classic fighters, he grows up to become like this admirable warrior, and he becomes a monk, and he ends up achieving enlightenment and becoming like, a role model for future generations to come or something. Well, if that would happen, then yeah, that would be awesome. Then respect to you, Sega, if you do that. Because this isn't coming out of anywhere either. Like, if you look at the dialogue of so many Virtua Fighter characters throughout the series, all of them, even when they say like training, like, oh, your kung fu is insufficient, you lack enough training, yeah, those stock holds that they use, the word that they use in those situations is not in Japanese. It's not just like kunren, which would imply just like physical exercise or like sport, stuff like that. They actually use the word shugyo, which implies not only physical development but also your like mental development. It's almost like a religious practice doing martial arts. It's like full on body, heart, and soul. So when like Lao Chan tells you Shugyo Gatarin, your training is insufficient, it doesn't just mean that you have to like do more push-ups or stuff like that. You actually have to self-reflect on what you're doing, yeah? Maybe meditate on your whole approach to everything, and only that will make you stronger. Which is totally like a martial arts thing, right? Developing not only your fists, but also yourself as a human being and as a warrior. But it also perfectly matches with the whole philosophy of playing VF, VF is a very elegant and technical game where you won't just get better at like learning how to mash attacks better. You actually have to like how many times like in my personal experience have to like rethink the whole way of play, watch replays and like, okay, this is what I'm doing wrong, like these patterns that I do, they should be totally thrown out of the window and replaced with something better. It's like a warrior's journey. And a perfect translation of like the whole martial arts ethic, Like Kage will tell you, Waga kokoro kunari, yeah? My heart has become void, like pure, my mind is pure, because he's Buddhist and like, this whole thing of emptying your vessel to make room for improvements for the purpose of self-growth, growth, this is what martial arts and VF have always been about. Now you look at like this Cielo guy as the main character, like, do you see him meditating? Or do you see him possibly snorting a fat line off the table? Like, seriously, come on. So I hope that Sega doesn't forget about all this stuff, Watching earlier interviews with the staff made me very hopeful, because they were talking about like, respecting the roots and understanding what the series is all about, and pushing this legacy into the future. I want to believe, yeah? I don't want to cross it out right now, but so far from what we've seen, just the tone is just completely misplaced. I hope Sega doesn't forget about this part of VF. Yeah, it would be a real shame. Even from my perspective, playing VF for a number of years now and like traveling around different countries to compete, and like the different continents even, and you meet people. The VF community is some of the nicest and welcoming people in the FGC, and you really feel that they have this warrior ethic, It's like you almost feel like you're a shonen anime character with the character that you're playing, and you're going around tournaments and like, oh, there's this tough guy to beat, but actually he's a real softie once you get to know him, which is really cool. Even in the community, you get like this warrior's journey kind of mini arc for yourself IRL by playing the game. It's really awesome. Everything ties in together beautifully. It's just perfect balance. Yeah, anyway, to sum up this whole elongated point, yeah, I hope that, Garbage Dump City is not the only venue that we get to visit in the story mode, and that we get some more like, culturally significant locations, maybe some, beautiful natural vistas, like in earlier VFs, and overall that there's a more of a hopeful tone to all of this than just, fighting for money to get like, eat garbage off the street to survive. Why does everything have to be so pessimistic? Come on. And also overall, RGG might be the developer, but I hope the whole premise of the game is like of story mode is having like a Yakuza style plotline in a Virtua Fighter game and not having a Virtua Fighter versus mode, by the way, in a whole new Yakuza game, period. Please don't disappoint me, Sega. I'm counting on you. You know, this is my beloved series, and for many people all over the world as well. You know, yes, please attract new players and give them the fun of their lives, but please don't forget about us as well, right? And please don't forget about like the roots of the series. The martial arts aesthetic is very important, and yeah, I think that's all I have to say for today. Wow, that was a long-winded conversation. Hope you enjoyed. And yeah, catch you next time, everybody. Peace out, fellow warriors. Yo.